Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanora Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Bande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhusya Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. We are discussing the meditation and as a part of the self-realization. Meditation is not a means of knowledge. Meditation is only having gained the knowledge, concentrating on what I have gained. And in the process of developing mind in order to do meditation, we have outlined several stages of meditation and several practices that have been illustrated. And we go, every time you do meditation, you have to go through all these steps. Step number 1 is pranayama, controlling the breathing. And this can be done by controlling taking the air in, storing the air in the lungs and exhausting, but deliberately doing it, and as though you are really taking the air in, and so you can control the way the process is. So that is what pranayama. And without worrying too much about the exact technique, it's only to control the breathing so that the mind comes to the seat of meditation rather than running all over the world. When I try to control the breath, mind has to come, and that's the technique, because mind and breathing are interrelated. So the second step of this process is prana vichana. Pranayama, prana vichana. Prana vichana is observing only. So I have to stand apart. So essentially I am withdrawing as though I am not the one who is doing the breathing, because breathing goes on mechanically even without my awareness, because whole night I will be breathing only, but I know that I am breathing. So breathing can done and being controlled by Ishvara, that will come back again, but at this stage you be a witnessing agent to the breathing process. So observe your own mind, your own body, your own breathing process, and that's called prana vichana. That's the second stage, so that mind is given a task to do it. If you don't give any task, mind will run away. So first bringing the mind and then give a task for the mind to do. That's called prana vichana. Then we go to next step, and that's called third stage of practice, because each stage you may have to practice. If you are not used to it, you may have to practice sometimes a month until you are thoroughly in that. And the third step in the process is deha vichana, observing the whole body from top to bottom, as though you are standing apart. So this way you are trying to withdraw yourself, your identification with the body, because most of the time body is I am, body is fat, I am fat, body is white, I am white, and body is black, I am black. All these properties of the body are superimposed on myself, and when body having pain, I am having a problem. So this is all the problems of the body has become my problems with intense identification. Body problems have to be addressed to the degree that is possible. If a car is having a problem, you have to take it to garage and you may have to pay and then go through the process that are required so that it is roadworthy. Same way, if the body is living worthy, to make sure to the degree that it can be taken. It comes to a stage which cannot be repaired, so you have to drag on whatever the body can provide. Like a car is going too slow, I can't do much, so as long as you are using the car, you have to put up with it. Same way you have to put up with the body problems, because the body cannot be repaired anymore as it ages particularly. but use to the degree possible, optimum, where you need to use it, you have to use it. Otherwise, you cannot transact in the world. You cannot sit here and let the mind go and attend some classes. Body has to go there in order to. If the body cannot go, then you have to bear with it. If it can't go, then you have to sit and read there itself. And that all these things is part of the body problem. But when I stand apart and observe the body, I am a witnessing agent looking at the witness, which is the body, including its problems. If there is a back pain, you witness the back pain also. And the funny thing is, when you witness your own pains, the pain ceases to be, because the mind is busy with witnessing. Without the mind, you cannot experience the pain. And that's the reason why people go to take sleeping pills to go to deep sleep state, because they don't want, the pain is so much that they want to sleep, and they cannot sleep at the pain, so they take sleeping pills, and during the sleep you don't have a pain. So you are there, no pain, and when you are awake, you are there, pain is there, so pain doesn't belong to you. So this process of what you call Anvaya Vyatireka, where I am there, it is there, I am there, it's not there, I am still there, so I am independent of that. So that which comes and goes is essentially a temporal only. So all the whole world itself is considered as this, the physical world is what I can see. These are the properties of the physical. Drishyatvam, I can see. Bhautikatvam, it is the matter. And Sagunatvam, it has the properties. Savikaratvam, it is continuously changing. Agamapayitvam, it is the comes and goes, including the pain also. So these are 5 properties of the world that is not to the subject. What are the 5 properties? Number 1, Drishyatvam. It can be seen, heard, means it can be perceived or conceptualized or objectified. Drishyatvam means I can see, even in my mind, if I can see, that is also Drishyatvam. Anything that I can be objectified comes under the objective world. So Drishyatvam, then the Bhautikatvam, it's made up of material, either the physical material, the gross material, the tangible material, or subtle material, which is essentially you find in the dream state, where you are creating the rivers and forests and all that in your own dream, because there is no real material, but for a dreamer that is a real material. It's a conceptualized material, and that is essentially the Bhautikatvam, and the first one is Drishyatvam, Bhautikatvam, and Sagunatvam. Anything that I see has a properties, and therefore it has property means attributes, because every object is, knowledge of every object is only attributive knowledge that we have discussed before. So this is essentially Sagunatvam. And Savikaratvam, that which continuously undergoes change, is a property of an objective world. It's why we said Jagat. Jagat means Jayate Gacchate, that keeps continuously changing. Or Gurudev used to say Juga 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 Juga, will be changing continuously. So that's nature of the Jagat. Change is the nature of the Jagat. And the fourth one is Agamapayitvam. Because it's changing, therefore things come and things go. Day come, day goes. Seasons come, seasons goes. Years come, years go. So time continuously rolling all the time. Danayaminyo sayam prataha sisiravasanto punarayataha kala kridati gachat vayuhu tadapina panchat asha vayuhu. So people live through all these Dinayaminyosa, the morning comes and the evening goes. Morning comes, evening. Yesterday is over, today, tomorrow will come again. This goes on and on and on. We think this is important, but that's gone. So Agamapayitvam, that comes and goes. I don't have to cry for that which comes and goes, because another thing is coming. So the suffering comes, it has to go. Whatever comes has to go. That's called Jayate Gacchati, that keeps coming. And Krishna says, Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu. That means whatever is born has to be, has to die, means has to undergo modification. And that's why in the Nyaya, they define an object is pragabhava pratyogini. The object is that which has non-existence before. Pragabhavam means counter to it was non-existent before and now it came into existence. So it's defined as an object is that which is counter to its non-existence before. It's a very funny definition, but that's what it means. That means it is it came into picture now and it may disappear later. So Krishna says, Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyaktanidhanam eva tatraka parivedana. Why are you crying? Because it was not there before and it is here now and it's not going to be future. That which is agama apayihi, that which keeps on coming, they don't need to, but you have to forbear when it is there. That's why matra sparsvastu kaunteya sitoshna sukadukkadaha agama paino nityaha tam titichasva bharata. Titicha is one of the requirements for a sadhaka. You have to forbear. It is hot, it's going to be hot. But there is no complaint. If you complain and it's going to change, then you can complain, but nothing is going to change. If you can put AC or go some place where cooler place and try to shake, so you have to operate in such way to maximize your comforts. But that's the same way, but there is nothing we can do about it. So same way, people complain about hot, people complain it's cold, people complain it's not raining, people complain if it's raining. Every time we have. So what you have to do, these things, don't waste your time in complaining all the time. Complaining will help if that is going to change the situation. So somebody is doing wrong thing, then complaining has to be done in order to make it correct. If you cannot correct it, at least somebody who is higher up has to correct it. So you don't take things in your hand to correct it, because there is a responsible people who has to do it, but you have to complain to them for appropriate actions. So this is a property of proper living also. And this is a property of the whole world itself. Drishyatvam, bhautikatvam, sagunatvam, savikaratvam, agamapayitvam. That which is the permanent, which doesn't have any of this, or all the five, therefore it's drishyatvam, it is adrusyam. And that's why we did in the seventh mantra of the Mandukya Upanishad. This is adrushtaha, this is adrusyam, agrahyam, agotram, acharchusat. Therefore it cannot be seen, it cannot be touched, and so on and so forth. So this is a property of that. So that which is beyond the object, why? It is adrusyam. So it is, instead of drishyatvam, adrusyatvam. So instead of bhautikatvam, abhautikatvam. And instead of sagunatvam, nirgunatvam. And instead of savikaratvam, nirakaraha. And the last one, agamapayitvam, is nityatvam. That means it doesn't keep coming, it's always eternal. So that is the nature of reality, but I cannot see because it's cannot be seen. But in and through what I see, cognitively I have to see. And this is a part of the now sadhana as well as part of the knowledge also. So we are talking about meditation, at the same time meditation with the knowledge, at the same time trying to abide in the knowledge. All three, therefore this is not just an exercise, but exercise involving understanding, involving abiding in the knowledge. It's meditation. Nijasitavyaha means you have to constantly keep that in mind, so that mind doesn't go outside. So this is important until mind is firmly rooted in that. Now we are looking at the Ishvara Darshanam. So we are looking at in the highest, in the mind, the Mano Darshanam, Mano Vikshanam, in looking at the mind, since the mind has to look at itself, then we need to have a navigation for the mind to see. So therefore, we bring in not any some object, we bring Ishvara. So we went through all the process of what to do. Now we are looking at the Ishvara, not necessarily in the form, but formless Ishvara. And itself becomes the stage of the sadhana now. Not only in the meditation, but you can get into meditation from the morning, first thing in the morning, think of the Lord. How do I think of the Lord? Think of your own self, because the Lord is there in your heart. So when you visualize the presence of the light as the very life principle, because now we are not talking about a particular form, first think of a form if it is helpful, then think of a formless form as the very life principle itself. So that is the Lord. Very life that I am, see, that is the Ishvara. So Ishvara Darshanam becomes a normal, because now I am not picturizing Ishvara in any particular form, but that go beyond the form, because he is formless in all forms too, but he is formless as he is. So now expression of Ishvara is taken as a symbolism for Ishvara. What is the expression of Ishvara? The life principle, because we don't know what life is. That's why life itself is a precious. So every life is a precious. So anything that is living, you can say Ishvara is expressing there. So see the presence of the Ishvara in you first and in others. In the spouse sleeping next to you, in your own mind visualize the presence of Ishvara taking sleep there. So now you can see everyone that you are familiar with, conceptualize them in your mind, bring them to in your mind and see the presence of the Lord. This becomes a sadhana. So when I am sitting on the bed, all the people that I am going to transact in the day, so I bring in, say I have already scheduled my day schedule, I have what I have to do this, I have to do this, but in all my doing I am transacting with the people. So picturize the presence of the Lord Ishvara in every one of them. Doesn't matter how they express and how they behave, but remember they are alive. So Lord is there in them. There is a very interesting story. Maybe this is a Zen story or a fakir story, where there is one fakir who wants to make sure that everybody is fed. At least poor people are fed. So he has a practice to invite some beggar to home and treat as though he is a chief guest and feed him as much. And after he eats, then only he was eating. That becomes a sadhana. I had an uncle like that, also will tell later. But this fakir saw one beggar and invited him and offered everything and then offered the food. And the beggar started immediately eating because he has been starving for many days. And the fakir got wild because he didn't do prayer before he ate. So he invited him to do, and then he expected the beggar to do first prayer because of the God grace only he is getting some food and start eating. But without prayer he started eating. And he stopped. He said, why don't you do first prayer? Why are you doing it? The beggar said, what prayer? Said, whom should I pray? He never gave me anything, and why should I pray him? So he started abusing the Lord. So the fakir got so wild, you fellow, you got the food only because of God's grace, and you are eating and abusing the Lord while eating, and without his presence you cannot even eat or digest. You get out of my house. He kicked him out of the house because he was so angry. And he was happy that he got rid of a wrong person. And in the middle of the night when he was sleeping, Lord appeared to him. He says, you kicked me out of the house. So he was startled. When did I do that? Oh Lord, I'm sorry. When did I do it? So you remember you kicked the beggar away? Don't you know that I was there in the beggar also? When I'm there, you are also kicking me also. If I could put up with him because I was there all his life abusing me, still I was there in his heart. If I could put up with them for whole life, you could put up with him just for a day? So Lord was asking him. Then he realized. So this is a story to tell us that we are angry with people, but we should see that they are the presence of the God. So should that mean that I should not get angry? No, you should get angry when anger is required to solve a problem. All our gods are getting angry also with the people, otherwise they cannot kill with the wrongdoers, because they have to set an example. But when they do it, they do with a compassion. It's just as when I get angry with my child for misbehaving, I get angry for correcting the child. And sometimes anger is required depending upon the child. You cannot argue with the child and convince the child, because the child is still a child. As the child becomes bigger and understand the logic of it and appreciate the logic, then you don't need to anger, you have to convince by logically. So things will change depending upon how, but you can get angry, as Gurudev says, you can get angry when anger is required, but let anger not get you. And that's why dukkeshu anudvignamana, the dhayato vishayan pumsaha sangaste shupajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate. Anger comes when you are not satisfied and angry, and people argue angrily also. Why? Because they don't have any more logic. Sesham the kopena purayatu. That means the rest of the arguments are filled by anger. That means I don't have any basis. So whenever we use angry arguments, what are you doing? We are compensating the lack of knowledge, lack of logic by anger. That means we don't have anything to say. That's a different, but you may have to use anger if the other fellow is not listening or not doing or not caring for your arguments, even though you are presenting logical. It's a different, because you have to see when anger is required, when to do the job, when anger is only obstructing and doing the job also. So one has to be intelligent enough to get angry when it is needed, because you don't have to be a doormat for everybody to step on it. Oh, I am a Vedantin, I should not get angry, let everybody walk through. No, that's not Vedanta. Vedanta is when anger is required to solve a problem. Because what you are trying to solve a problem is establish the order in the universe. Remember, that is what Ishwaratvam means. Ishwaratvam means there is an order and a beauty. So you create an order. If some people are making a dirty all over, you have to correct it and make the world beautiful. That my contribution to Ishvara, so that Ishvara's vibhuti can be glorified. So if there is a temple, if make it all dirty around the temple, then that's Ishvara doesn't want to stay there also. So we have to make sure that everything is clean and proper. Doesn't mean that you should be spending only in cleaning and not doing the rest of it. That also happens for a lot of people. So we have to see how you apply this logic, how they apply these concepts clearly for your own progress. So therefore, Ishvara is the Agama is beyond all this. So I have to see the presence of the Lord in me and in everyone. That becomes a sadhana, that becomes a meditation now. Ishvara darshanam, how to see the Lord everywhere. At the very life principle itself I should see. And whenever I have a time, I can sit in the meditation. Remember, all the stages are done only to prepare for this. If I can do this right away, then all those things become redundant. I don't have to go to second grade, third grade, fourth grade again, all that in order to reach, because I am already in that state. If my mind is already in the state to bring Ishvara wherever I am, then you are in constant meditation. Isha Jiva Yoho Veshadi Vida Sattva Bhavato Vastu Kevalam. There is no difference between Ishvara and Jiva. It's only, costume is only different. That's what Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. So Isha Darshanam Swatma Darshanam. So seeing Ishvara is nothing but seeing your own self also. That will come. First we have to develop a knack of seeing the Lord everywhere. That becomes a sadhana, that becomes a meditation of the highest, where that becomes a bhakti and that becomes a jnanam also. Because Krishna says, Yo mam pasyati sarvatra sarvancha mai pasyati pasyaham na pranasyami satamena pranasyati. One who sees me, Yo mam pasyati sarvatra, everywhere. Everywhere includes all beings and all bhautikatvam is every element in the world is nothing but the Lord in the form of that element. So I have a reverence for the creation itself. That attitude I had to develop. But at least for living things I should develop. I should not destroy the living things. There's a story when Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi was in the festival time, they put mango leaves for decoration, mango leaves for worship and all that. So they were cutting mango leaves and they're decorating, and one person was cutting lot of mango leaves, and Ramana Maharshi became wild because you are cutting unnecessarily those, because that's a life, how much of the tree is crying because you are taking more than what you are doing. What you are doing is take what you little as, because when you pull something you are hurting the plant also. So do the minimum damage in order to do it. If you can do without the lives, do it. But you think that itself will give you your mind a higher state, then do minimum damage to the world. So this becomes important because people keep plucking flowers and all that. So remember, when somebody plucks you something from you, you get so pain. So imagine the Lord Himself is in every life form, including a plant, including the bug, including even mosquito. So does that mean that mosquito I should not kill? You don't kill mosquito unnecessarily. If it is going to hurt you, then you kill, because it's going to be a problem later. Protection, self-protection becomes a God protection also. So one has to be careful where you draw. So someone asked me when I was visiting a relative of mine. So there is the lizard was going and trying to catch a bug there, and she was so concerned about the bug's life, and she was driving away that lizard and preventing that lizard from catching the fly. And she asked me, is that a sin? Am I committing a sin by stopping the lizard, because lizard naturally is to eat the fly? I said, you are doing your duty and it's doing its duty. Your duty is stop it. The lizard has to catch, but not necessarily in front of you. It can do somewhere else. You are not going to make a rule that no lizard should catch the bugs. Then you have a problem. Lizard will depend on it, but what you are doing is a violence in front of you. So if you think that is not right, then stop it. So then there is no two thoughts about it. There is no sin in that, because you are doing what is your swadharma. Swadharme nidanam sreyaha. So that's what the whole Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is not teaching a violence there. So it tells to Arjuna, you have to do your duty to protect the dharma. Not fighting is not necessary if you can establish the dharma without fighting. In fact, Krishna himself went as an ambassador to avoid the fighting and killing anybody, because if that can be done by negotiation, then you don't need a war. But war becomes forced on you, then you have to fight for the sake of establishing the righteousness. That is what the message of Gita is, not a violence. Violence is only, it so happened that is the only means to establish the dharma. What is required is establishing the dharma. You are essentially aiding the Lord in establishing the dharma, because Lord otherwise has to come down every time to do it. You say, hey, I am helping you, so you don't need to take trouble of coming down. so that the Lord will be very happy in the process. So all these are important in the life principle itself. By seeing Ishvara everywhere, my attitude in life itself changes, and we will discuss how the Ishvara darshanam and ultimately has to go into Swatma darshanam. And these are not two different things, and that's what will be coming to self-realization in the process. With this, we stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Sishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.